Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Disco Elysium. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that you chose to join me today as we have our debrief. In fact, I think we have finished our debrief here with Kim up here as our Shivers talks to us.
The lights of the orphan district are reflected in his glasses. The red and golden orbs of the motorway sliding like pearls on a string from east to west as Revachol commutes back to the suburbs. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Monday is over.
I'm just gonna say nothing and look into the night.
The dying lights of the city shimmer below. Slowly, like luminous clouds, they pass on his lenses. The lieutenant looks at his slim cigarette, contemplating the next drag.
They really don't like us here. And the mouth on that kid, Kuno. It's different inland, in Jamrock and the GRIH.
He pulls on the cigarette. Why are they like this?
It's our fault for leaving this place to the dogs, to the union, to the company. Not daring to come here more often. It's like I told you, this place is an orphan, fallen between the cracks.
And in Jamrock and the GRIH?
We run this city. West of the river is RCM land.
He looks at the dark silhouette of the equestrian monument cutting into the night sky. And that's this one over here. Equestrian means horse related.
It's incredibly hard. Human beings are...
He shakes his head.
But we are in control, and it's worth it. The organization works. Our systems work. If they didn't, the city would disintegrate.
He's trying to convince himself more than me, most likely. I hope our investigation will help improve the situation here. At least do some good.
Me too.
He says quietly.
But I wouldn't count on any drastic changes in our lifetimes.
He is very tired, but the dark circles under his eyes make him look younger, not older.
Thank you for this.
Yeah, it's getting very cold now. Let's go.
He puts out the stub of his cigarette and looks to the door.
What's this? We're getting reports of normal, reasonable, temperate political opinions somewhere in Martinez.
That is the Moralists. The moralism has kicked in. Ladies and gentlemen and beautiful people, we are going to become the character that I set out to become, hopefully. That's me, Mr. Reasonable. Someone's got to keep it sane around here.
The air suddenly feels calmer, more transparent in a strangely tender way. Perhaps it's the hangover. Perhaps it's a temporary surge of serotonin. But something tells you, it's time to become a citizen of the Kingdom of Conscience.
And conscience and morale are so closely related. In fact, in Portuguese, the words are a synonym. In English, they're a little bit different because conscience is used to denote being conscious, where conscientious is a different word, which is where this kingdom comes from. It's the being conscientious rather than conscious. English is weird with the words, but they have origins in Latin, so it's difficult. Yeah, this is about being a moralist, and moralist has to do with a moral compass, I would guess. It's kind of difficult. Kim had the line last episode about that's what they want you to think of them when they say something about their motto being... I actually forgot what their motto was. I focused so much on the blue forget-me-not. But first, where's this kingdom of conscience?
It is not a place. It is a moment in time that can only arise in the right circumstances. In all of human history, it's only been achieved a handful of times.
How do you bring about those circumstances?
Incrementally.
That's actually very important. One of the biggest criticisms towards liberalism, which would be the closest real life... Well, I was going to say which would be the closest real life political current to moralism here, but actually that's not true. It's what moralism in Disco Elysium it was written to satirize. it is liberalism. And one of the biggest criticisms of liberalism is just how opposed to radical change it is, and that's why, like, it's readily obvious, and it has been pretty obvious. Well, it hasn't been pretty obvious in this Let's Play, but the game does talk about it consistently enough where this doesn't come as a surprise. This is the crux of the satire of liberalism in this game, is how incremental it is and how detached from radical change it is. And sometimes I think, obviously, I haven't played this is a blind playthrough in regards to this particular political political alignment, but it is still. I think I am right in saying that I have an idea of where the game is going to go with some of the narrative in that regard, and I don't think it is very easy. I mean, again, I have trouble distinguishing moralism from the ultra-libertarians, but still, I don't think it is very easy to distinguish between moralism in this game and the none of the above options that show up every once in a while, a lot of the time, in fact. You can absolutely not choose not to take part in the outwardly political choices, because obviously there's a lot of political choices, but the game really assumes a very, very jarring tone. And I say jarring, but maybe that's not the word. A very blatant tone when it comes to choosing the political stances, because they're satires constantly. They're satire, including I would say including the communist one, unless they're written by a tanky, which I don't believe this game's writers are. But I haven't read too much about them, or I've seen some interviews, and I don't think they are. But when I say a tanky, I mean a communist that is in favor of forced revolution and authoritative regimes. That's not the word. What is the word for authoritative? It's not authoritative. Dictatorships and stuff like that. And that's what a tanky would be. I think it is authoritative regimes. I don't know. I'm sorry. English is difficult.
Yawn. You'd get there faster with a little speed.
Electrochemistry kicking in with a real truth.
History's greatest catastrophes have been brought about by people trying to make the world a better place too quickly.
Yeah, this is the problem. Obviously, this is still part of the satire, but this is the problem. Like, this deconstructs the problem with why wanting to be incremental is an issue. It isn't on principle, because I think it's reasonable to. It's definitely painted as reasonable by the game and by a lot of liberals in real life. But I think it is reasonable to be concerned with the short-term and even long-term implications of radical change. It's a thing that needs to be discussed and people need to be aware of. The problem is when your political ideology, and our character's ideology here as well, when your political ideology focuses so much on opposing that radical change, it ends up playing into the hands of those who are willing to disguise their own radical change as incremental. And I'm talking about specifically the fascists, because fascism is incremental in its rise of society, but it is also very relentless in its change. And you could say that societal progress and progressivism is also relentless in its change, but it is only relentless through the hard work of a lot of people and through through education. Obviously, that's one of the reasons why liberalism is self-conflicting and is depicted as well by this game as self-conflicting, because on the one hand, liberalism strives to educate people and to give them better living conditions that allow them to have time to think about less immediate stuff like political theory and just being aware of the political implications of their lives. But at the same time, it fights them when they realize, hey, wait a minute, this is actually shit. And yeah, so it can be a double-edged sword. Education is definitely a double-edged sword by the people in power, and that's why it's a very contentious issue, even though it shouldn't be. Because why would you want to keep people in the dark and uneducated? Because there's a lot of people who like that idea that the world doesn't need more educated people, and usually those are the people that benefit, or think they benefit anyway, by people being less educated, like owners of capital, because they employ them, and the less educated they are, the cheaper their labor is, in some circumstances, naturally. But what I was saying, just to bring my point home, is that your political ideology becomes about fighting the ones who want the world to become a better place quickly. Your moralism, canonically in Disco Elysium, is about making sure that the people who want the world to be a better place quickly don't actually achieve their goals quickly. So moralism is an obstacle for quick change to the world. That's the end. At the end of the day, that is the issue, and that does reflect real life, and it is a satire of real life in that way. It's written for that.
That's the genius of Dolores Day. She recognized that progress is meaningless if its gains are lost because of instability. Real, lasting change can only come about gradually, increment by increment.
That's the argument. And that's why I was saying it's reasonable to make an argument. Instability is a problem. But it's instability brought on by whom? That's the real question. It's an answer. You can answer that however you like. I don't think we're going to need to answer it right now. And I don't think in this Let's Play we're going to answer that and focus on that. But what about all the things that are wrong now, though?
Tisk tisk. Just because you live in the present doesn't mean you have the right to place your needs above the needs of the future. You may never live to see the kingdom of conscience. Your children may not. Even your grandchildren might not. But that's no excuse not to keep working. What sang-froid?
Sang-froid.
What a fucking joke.
Composure didn't like it. Electrochemistry didn't like it. We're talking to our empathy here. I love that it's our empathy who comes across as that. When it... that's interesting, because it is definitely empathy that is appealed by the moralists. So it makes sense that empathy would be the one. Wait, is the kingdom of conscience really about doing things or just preserving the status quo? And this would be the argument against liberalism here.
Do you believe the status quo is preferable to chaos and bloodshed?
And that is the false dichotomy that is used to defend the answer of yes, it is, because that's what empathy is tacitly asserting here. I made a specific question. It's, well, at the end of the day, it's a yes or no question. That, but you know, the empathy just try to argue against, because the implicit answer is yes, the kingdom of conscience is really about just preserving the status quo. The thing is, this is a false dichotomy, or false dichotomy, I think that's how it's pronounced. But it's not just about being a false dichotomy. If you don't know what a false dichotomy is when you present two opposite ends of a solution, or two opposite results for a problem that you're trying to solve, and one of them is, you know, they don't need to both be one good and one bad or anything, but the point is that you put it in a way that makes sure a middle ground is never achieved. And so here we would say, what about no status quo and also no chaos and bloodshed? But that's not even the biggest problem here. This actually ties into what I said before about who brings on the chaos and bloodshed. And I will want to answer it right now. I don't need to. But empathy is kind of making it sound like moralism is going to bring on the chaos and bloodshed. Now, I don't think that is the correct answer, but it might not be completely unrelated to moralism. So do you believe the status quo is preferable? I'm going to say yes.
There you have it. Sometimes holding the line is progress.
Okay, but what's the kingdom of conscience actually like?
The kingdom is difficult to comprehend, and even more difficult to describe, partly because humanity will need to discard many of the categories that define and limit it today. The kingdom of conscience is post-capitalist, post-national. It's also post-industrial, post-ideological, and even post-sexual.
The subtext here might have something to do with something that I've seen faint hints of in this game, but I don't remember if it is just out and out said. there is a common understanding among historians specifically that the first time liberalism, not neoliberalism because it's complicated, it also names, anyway, the worldwide order of the economic, the capitalist free market around, well, free, more or less free market around the world is seen by the system itself and by the defenders of the system, and I'm talking real life here, is seen as sort of the end game. It's sort of, we have reached the end of history. If you look up the end of history, there's a book written about that, of which I have only read the preface. So there you go. I don't read nearly as much as I should. But either way, the idea is still there that the current economic system is the perfect economic system, and even though the results might not be perfect, it's a matter of polishing it and making sure it works properly, which is very much in line with liberalism specifically, but also in Disco Elysium about moralism as well. This idea that the objective is a place that is post everything effectively and is the end of the evolution, and it's just, yes, that is great, and we have attained this fantastic nirvana sort of thing. It sort of reminds me of that, but I don't know if it is an immediate illusion. So we have two ways of opting out. I'm gonna opt in. Sounds incredible. Allons-y. Let's go there right now.
Slow down, Mr. Reasonable. Did you miss the part about compromising and taking things slow?
Oh, right, yeah. Let's get there eventually?
That's right. Remember, real democracy is just around the corner for Revachol. When that real democracy kicks in, a long time from now, we are all going to be so much happier.
Mm-hmm. Real democracy. It's kind of... it's a little... It's hard to write satirical stuff that doesn't have the tone be changing all over the place. Empathy probably wouldn't equate the kingdom of conscience as to real democracy. Empathy would probably defend that the current democracy is real enough and it's good. It's just that, the kingdom of conscience is good as well, and better and good at the same time. And not better, but just better. There would be because the understanding that capitalism, the status quo, is inherently undemocratic is an understanding that requires you to be aware of the power differences brought on by the different amounts of money that people have and how those apply to reality, and why that is a role, or why that power or the differences of that power is a reason to say that something can be more democratic than another. If you understand democracy as a simplistic tool of just electing the people who somehow are best fit for the job, or better represent the people that they're going to govern. There's a lot of ways to define democracy, and a lot of ways that don't involve anything else apart from just the partisan politics that a lot of democracies rule themselves by. If you just go for a simplistic understanding of democracy, you don't need to get into how much money certain people have and class differences and all that sort of stuff. You just need to define, are people allowed to vote, or are people well educated about their vote, well enough educated about their vote, and you don't need to ask too many difficult questions. And that's why I say, I don't think equating those two would be something that empathy says. I think this is part of the satire, because it is not real democracy. It cannot be real democracy when certain people have so much more power than others, even though they haven't even been elected. They've just gotten there because they have played the capitalism game better, or because they were born in a certain country or of a certain gender or whatever. Because, yeah. Still 2 a.m. And now we have Kingdom of Conscience. Heartache is powerful, but democracy is subtle. Incrementally, you begin to notice a change in the weather. When it snows, the flakes are softer when they stick to your worry-worn forehead. When it rains, the rain is warmer. Democracy is coming to the administrative region. The ideals of DeLorean humanism are reinstating themselves. How can they not? These are the ideals of the Coalition and the Moralist International. Those guys are signal blue. And they're not only good, they're also powerful. What will it be like once their nuanced plans have been realized? And I think I will absolutely have to go with this one. It is going to lower my half-life, which is a problem. It's just an issue. But I don't know what the result is. It's just a temporary bonus. It's actually pretty fast, so I think we're going to get it done tomorrow or early tomorrow. We'll see. Calm water is the result. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to unlock this point with the one slot that we have. And if I click over here and then I click over there, I can internalize it. And it's there. It's doing the thing. It's a spine? Or I don't know what it is, but I'll go with it. And we have thought-related bonus, -1 and -2. -1 on logic is kind of a bad thing. But we're a superstar and we're Mr. Reasonable. I don't think those two go hand in hand. But it doesn't matter. We're here. Kim, I'm going to bed. It's still 2 a.m. I really exploited the game. Apparently, it just doesn't go past 2 a.m. Maybe on the first day. I think you might pass out or something on other days. See you in the morning, he says.
Yes?
Yes. Bye. He actually left... before I was done with his dialogue. Let me close the door. What a heap of trash. What a freaking dump. Let's see. What am I gonna do here? My gloves for half-light, probably a good thing. We have a map over here with Joyce Messier. That was exclamation mark. Well, it's not with me. I can't do it anymore. Is it because I brought my Esprit de Corps up by any chance? We have footprints in the dust here. A visual calculus check. Really? I think that's outside.
A mirror hangs on the bathroom wall. It's barely covered in steam anymore. It's your face in the mirror, adorned with the expression.
I'll try to get rid of you. Just not right now. I really don't know that I have new things that I can check. It looks like I can, especially with the empathy. Tommy le homme. And then we have Gaston over here. A rhetoric check. That's probably to get him to lower my price or anything. Okay. Yeah. Let's look at our things over here. Our items. Our interact items, I should say. So we have the photo here. Nothing here. We have the damaged ledger. We haven't read everything here. Let's browse the yellow papers.
In the back, you see thin, translucent copy of paper. Some neon yellow, some bright red. All covered in boxes, like marching armies. These look like official forms, waiting to be filled out. Then rip them from the binder and hand them out, according to type of form.
Oh, what types of form are there?
3. The topmost are misconduct fines. The middle ones are station calls. And the bottommost are field autopsy forms. Each is easy enough to make sense of.
Misconduct fine.
A monetary penalization ranging from 20 to 250 real. Severe cases allow for 1,000 real, but that requires special paperwork. The details of issuing these fines are spread out over the rest of the fields.
Station call?
These are quite sinister in turn. They give a date and time for the person to appear at the specified precinct police station. Below the call are the criminal charges you risk by not appearing. All in a print so small it could be considered downright cute.
What about field autopsy?
A dozen pages of thin copy paper, bright red in color. You see the parameters of a deceased human form waiting to be filled in. Age, sex, condition of internal organs, color of the irises, predation marks, condition of sexual organs.
Enough of these.
Yes, all that remains now is to fill those forms and hand them to people. Fines for wrongdoers, interview requests for bad guys, and field autopsies to dead guys. The rest of the stinking cellulose is much worse for wear. Being sandwiched between the board and the rest of the paperwork must have spared the fragile copier paper.
Let's slide the hidden drawer open again.
Without resistance or sound, the two panels move against each other. The compartment is now open. Inside, you see 2 ticket stubs and a handmade postcard.
Can't do anything else.
It's slightly, ever so slightly, difficult to breathe once you've done so.
And let's put the ledger away. Let's continue looking around. Apricot chewing gum wrapper, we did it. And then we have a couple of books here. Let's go with it. This is the 16 Days of Coldest April.
In your hands, you hold 16 Days of Coldest April by Yekaterina Dahl. The cover image shows a row of concrete apartments above which span a black and white rainbow.
Feels heavy.
Indeed, the book is unusually heavy in your hands, as though the cover were lined with lead.
How long is this book anyway?
You flip through the book. The pages are thinner than you realized, and the type quite small and tightly set. It's nearly 600 pages long.
I'm gonna look at the back cover.
The back cover is dominated by a black and white photograph of the author.
What does she look like?
She can't be much older than her mid-30s in this photograph, and yet, from this cover, the eyes of a sad old woman stare back at you.
I'm gonna start reading.
In cold, detached prose, the author describes a scene from one of the Yugograd riots in the 20s. Youths overturn motor carriages and set trash cans ablaze, while heavily armored guardsmen dash in and disperse them in a flurry of baton blows. As ethnic tensions run wild, a pair of young lovers meet each other on the street. Somehow, in the middle of all the chaos, they manage to lock arms and look into each other's eyes.
What happens next?
It would physically hurt you to keep reading. Are you sure?
Sure. Read 10 more pages.
They go through a brief and somewhat awkward love affair. And in the end, they betray each other and succumb to the absurdity of Gradian life. The man becomes a lens grinder, completely abandoning his former existence. He toils through the daily drudgery at the Lenka polyfabricate. Happiness and fulfillment have eluded him his whole life. And in the end, he has nothing to do but dedicate himself to the craft.
And the woman?
She spends the next several decades standing at a conveyor in a Sosnovyj fish processing plant. The smell of fish guts slowly seeps into her hair and skin, as every single one of her dreams dies, one by one.
So it's like 1984.
The memory of their short time spent together tortures the former lovers ceaselessly until the end of their days. Years pass in solitude, their bodies growing ever more decrepit.
This is terrible.
As life leaves their remains between the soil sheets, their final thoughts are filled with regret.
I'm gonna put the book away. Man, that's an expensive book to read as well. Who had this? I forget. Time did pass, by the way. Time does pass. Let me just save again, because if this book is about to kill me, I might as well reload after that.
The front of this quarterly journal features a large satirical portrait of the late King Friesel. From the sides of his head, a pair of white antlers spread to the corners of the cover.
Why Friesel?
Because Friesel was incompetent, foolish, and cruel. In short, the embodiment of everything the communards wished to overthrow. It's satire, you see.
I'm gonna flip through the pages and see what catches my eye.
To your disappointment, there aren't any full-color pictures to direct your attention. Just column after column of closely set text, interrupted occasionally by little doodles in black and white. No advertisements, you notice. So who's funding this radical commentary? After rifling the pages with your thumb several times, you return to the table of contents. The magazine is divided into several sections: international developments, Kunst und Kultur, and local concerns. Just inside the cover, there's also an editor's note.
We have plenty of things to read then. Let's read it in the next episode because we're out of time for the day. So for right now, I'm Colonel RPG, and this has been Disco Elysium. I really hope you've enjoyed it. And if you did, go ahead and leave a comment, like the video, but above all, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.